Hey guys, Chase with High Threat Concealment. So in today's training tips video, I want to talk to you guys about marksmanship. Marksmanship is arguably one of the most important things that a combat or defensive shooter can have as one of their skill sets. Now, Webster defines marksmanship as a person who's extremely skilled at shooting at a mark or target. And I think that we in the firearms industry have run a little amok with this idea of maybe bullseye or competition marksmanship and combat marksmanship. And what I mean by that is when people start talking about combat marksmanship, often they refer to being good enough, i.e. I put rounds in a lethal or debilitating zone on my target and therefore I had achieved combat or good enough marksmanship because I took the threat out of the fight. While strictly speaking this is true, it can lead to some very unfortunate training practices and will give people either a false sense of skill or security, or could just lead them to not reach their full potential. And what I mean by this is we need to realize that while perfection is the enemy of good enough, we as people are essentially incapable of achieving perfection. Therefore, while we shouldn't ever be down on ourselves for where we are at a skill level, we should constantly strive to be better. We need to understand the potential legal, moral, and ethical ramifications of poor marksmanship. If we were to be engaged in a lethal force engagement, put good rounds on target, but also have rounds go astray, we could have serious moral, ethical, and legal ramifications for ourselves and our loved ones. So we need to come to terms with the fact that there really is no good enough or combat marksmanship. There's only the best marksmanship you as an individual shooter can achieve. And recognizing that, our training needs to reflect it. If you're shooting on steel, don't be happy with a ping. Track your shots through your sights. Self-diagnose. Make sure that you're holding yourself to the very highest standard possible. And if you're shooting on paper, paper will keep you honest, right? Steel makes you fast. Shoot on paper, if it cuts the line, that's not a hit. It cut the line. It's still a miss. Little things like that and other mental and training tips that I'll go over in the drills can make a big difference to individual shooters, helping them achieve the most that they can as an individual shooter. Guys, we carry weapons to provide ourselves and our community and our families with a higher standard of care, and we have to hold ourselves to that higher standard as well. All right, let's get started. So the first drill we're going to do is very simple. It's a deliberate, almost meditative drill. You're focusing on your body mechanics and your weapons manipulation, your fundamentals of marksmanship. Sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, grip stance, those sorts of things. Got 5 rounds in the rifle, 5 rounds in the pistol. Gonna shoot at 100 yards on steel with the rifle and then 25 yards on steel with the pistol. There's no time limit. Normally I'll end up taking about 30 seconds per weapon system to do this. It's completely on you, the time you wanna take to do it. All I'm focusing on is making every shot as good as I can and getting those good, clean hits. I'm self-diagnosing each round, trying to make little corrections on anything I may have made a mistake on, really dialing it in. All right, let's go. All right, and now we're going to do the exact same drill with the pistol. So, a couple of quick things I wanted to note. I actually had a failure to lock back on my rifle and my pistol. And both times, you'll notice that I was being so slow and deliberate that I ended up not having a flinch. But I actually see this while it was a mechanical failure in my rifle's part. It was I was overriding the slide stop with my hand on my pistol, so that was a grip issue for me on the pistol. But for my rifle, it should have locked back, and whether or not that's a spring issue or a magazine issue, I'll dive into that. But I was still able to get that good tracking through my sights and notice that when I was expecting a bang and it got a click, I didn't have any rise or dip in my muzzle, which means I wasn't overdriving the rifle, which is a good thing. But it's just one more little training note I can put in the video, hopefully make you guys aware of that when you're doing your training as well. All right guys, the next drill we're gonna shoot is just a simple transition drill. A lot of people are limited on time, money, ammunition, or like me, all three. And so you wanna get as much value out of as little monetary or time or ammunition input as possible. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to start out, draw and fire 2 rounds at 25 yards with the pistol, reholster, go to my rifle, I'm going to fire 2 rounds steel at 100. The reason I'm shooting at 25 and 100 in the standing and moving as quickly as possible is while I am working on that rapid trigger manipulation and good fundamentals of shooting, I'm forcing the marksmanship issue instead of shooting this drill closer by backing it up a little bit. So it doesn't mean that I want to slow down at all. I want to shoot this as fast at 25 and 100 as I would at 10 and 25. But I may be able to do that, I may not. I'm going to find out for myself, and I'm going to force that marksmanship even in what I would normally run as a speed drill. All right, let's see how it goes. All right, and there you go. I think that I was probably about as fast as I would have been on my pistol, a little bit slower on the rifle. Of course, a 100-yard standing rifle shot's not really challenging, but it did force me to slow down a little bit more than I'd like to. Why? Because I got target focused and then, like I should be with a red dot, and then I pulled back and my eyes looked for the dot. Shouldn't have had that happen. So it was a quick little mental screw up that cost me that extra millisecond that I wouldn't have probably seen at a closer range. But that's why we're out here training. This is good notes for me as a shooter. All right, let's move on to the next drill. So for our third drill, I'm going to incorporate movement. Now, the need to shoot on the move doesn't necessarily show up all the time, but it can be a very real necessity in law enforcement, civilian, and certainly military engagements. Normally, again, most moving drills are shot pretty close range. So just like the last drill, I'm going to shoot what would normally be a close range drill at a longer distance, therefore forcing that marksmanship because misses are unacceptable. So we have a steel at 50 yards. I'm just going to move forward and I'm going to fire the remainder of the rounds in my magazine. I don't know how many rounds are left in my magazine. I don't want to know. I want to be focused on what I'm doing. I have extra magazines here in our mag stacker, so if I go dry, I can go ahead, perform that speed reload, and get back into the fight. All right, let's do this. All right, so that went pretty well. Didn't shoot as fast as I could have, and my movement was a little bit slower than it should have been. I'm shooting on quarter-size silhouettes, and at 50 yards, that is really not a tough shot, and I think that I slowed it down in my head, and again, that was an eye tracking issue. My eyes kept going back and forth between the target and the dot instead of staying target focused like they should have, and that actually slowed me down. It slowed my shooting down, and it slowed my movement down. Drill went okay, but again, always good to get out here and get these learning points. All right, let's do the last drill. All right, so for the last drill today, I'm gonna have somewhat of a little scenario. Now, obviously, we're out in the field, but what I'm envisioning in my mind is a carjacking that you might see in a city at a stop sign or stoplight. I encourage you every time you shoot to see threats. Don't see targets. See what you may actually end up shooting at in real life. So, I have kids in my car. There's no way someone's getting to my car and therefore getting my kids unless it's over my dead body. However, your situation may be different. Whether or not you want to get in a lethal force encounter over your vehicle, that's your call. This is just what I'm practicing for myself. Basically, the scenario is going to run. I'm going to have my everyday carry setup, which is our Spectre holster and Evo mag carrier. Just like this, when I get in the vehicle, I take a second and I tuck my garments behind my holster and mag carrier, and therefore, when I'm driving, even if I have my seatbelt on, which yes, I drive with my seatbelt on, you know, you probably should too, I can still get a good draw, no problem, and I don't have to mess with anything to get my gun in the fight, and then I can take follow-on steps whether I'm going to exit the vehicle or not, depending on the situation. So in this scenario, I'm going to draw and I'm going to engage the target out of my window. You making the decision whether or not you take the time to roll down your window in a real life scenario, that's up to you. I'm not going to shoot up my glass just in training, so I have my window already rolled down. And then I'm going to open the door and engage the next target. The reason I'm getting out of my vehicle to engage a target is because I cannot get a shot on this target, and I set up deliberately this way, without making some kind of movement. In a real life scenario, again, you can make that call whether or not you want to take your shots through the windshield, taking into account what bullets do when they're interacting with a windshield, going out of a vehicle into the threat in, you know, what could easily be a crowded urban environment. And again, we come back to those ethical, moral, and legal considerations for marksmanship. So that's your call. Again, not shooting my windshield for training, so I'm going to go ahead and open the door and shoot through the V. All right, let's get started. Hey, get away from my car! Alright guys, so that's the training tips video today. I know it was a little bit longer than normal, but marksmanship is such a crucial skill for combat and defensive shooting that I really wanted to drive home the point that there is no such thing as good enough or acceptable combat marksmanship. There's only the best possible marksmanship you can achieve as an individual shooter with the skills, knowledge, and situation you find yourself in. Remember guys, you've got to train your mind, your body, and your spirit to be ready for when that moment chooses you, regardless of your application. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, put them below. See you next time.